So positive expectations are important, but there is such a thing as expecting too much from your child. So, for example, how did you misspell circus when you got all the others right? If you'd really thought about it, you would have had the perfect paper. Or this isn't a bad report card, but with your potential, you could have done better. Or you've got to practice, practice, practice until you play the piece perfectly. How else do you expect to be any good as a violinist? If your parents expect more from you than you're able to give, you're gradually going to stop trying because you know that you're never going to be able to satisfy them. You may decide to make your mark in other ways, like misbehaving. And since you can't be the best at being the best, maybe you can be the best at being the worst. Or maybe you will become a perfectionist yourself in a really futile attempt to please your parents and feel good about yourself. Life becomes one big worry as you're trying harder and harder. But even when you succeed, you can't enjoy it for fear of what challenge to your self-esteem is coming next. And as a child's self-esteem does not spring from achievements alone, it's much more important for people to be accepted by significant people in their lives, to really just belong. In fact, a lot of our effort to be successful is really just fueled by our desire to win the acceptance of those significant people. What most of us really want deep down inside is to be accepted for being ourselves, not for our achievements. So the baseball pitcher, Tim Wakefield, was once asked before pitching the biggest game of his young career if he was nervous. And his answer was no, because, he's reasoning, no matter what happened that night, the next day, three things would still be true. His parents would still love him, his friends would still love him, and God would still love him. And armed with that core acceptance for who he was, his success in life, as measured by his personal satisfaction, was pretty much well on its way. And so children who feel accepted by their parents, they have this bedrock of self-esteem upon which to construct a healthy and happy life. And without it, some of the wealthiest, most accomplished people in history have lived lives of very quiet desperation, wondering why their successes were never satisfying. And so the goal for parents is to communicate to our children that win or lose, or pass or fail, in the limelight or in the lineup, we are still your parents, and we're still glad of it. And we all need that unconditional acceptance from someone. And if we don't get it from our parents, we need to get it from someplace else, from a substitute parent or even a therapist. For some, a belief in God fulfills this human need. We also want to separate worth from accomplishment. A child's worth is less of a matter of what he does and more of a matter of who he is. You can let your child know that, while I admire your success and share in your disappointment and your failures, I love you for you. Emphasize the importance of participation in activities themselves and not just on the results. So encourage your child while they're doing a task instead of waiting until the end of the task is completed. So, hey, I'm glad you're enjoying learning new things, or playing your hardest is more important than winning, or losing doesn't make a person a loser. We can also separate worth from misbehavior. So just as a child's worth is not the sum total of their accomplishments, it is also not the sum of their misbehaviors. So a useful way to approach this is with the attitude that there are no bad children, only bad behavior. And if a child is labeled bad or no good, they're eventually going to come to believe that about themselves, and then bad behavior is going to feel appropriate to them. After all, what should we expect from bad people but bad behavior? And that self-fulfilling prophecy makes it vitally important that we refrain from labeling or shaming children for their mistakes or misbehaviors. Children who grow up ashamed of themselves have a difficult time regaining their lost self-esteem and their courage. And mistakes like misbehavior are not indications of a lack of worth, but they're actually part of growth and development. A mistake can teach a valuable lesson, showing a child what not to do in the future. And we want to help children, especially perfectionists, learn to make friends with their mistakes and not to be ashamed of them. Children and adults who are afraid and ashamed of making mistakes actually block their own growth and development. So a perfectionist, according to one joke, is a person who won't attempt a foreign language until he can speak it fluently. A fear of mistakes yields a fear of trying, which in turn yields less learning. Since one of our goals is to help our children learn, we want to help them accept mistakes with a smile rather than a kick. Like, no, you're not bad, but coloring on the walls is not okay. Let's find a good place to color. Or when we get angry at you, it doesn't mean that we don't like you. It means we don't like something you've done. Or mistakes are for learning. When we make a mistake, we don't blame, we correct it. Or I guess you make a mistake. Let's see what we can learn from it. We also want to appreciate the child's uniqueness. Although it is important to teach children that all people are equal, that doesn't mean that all people are the same. So it's encouraging for your child to know that they're unique, that they're special, that they're just one of a kind. And you can appreciate your child's uniqueness by taking an interest in their activities. Most of all, you can say and do things that show your child that you love them for their unique self and for no other reason. Like, anyway, that's my opinion. What's yours? Or, hey, I love your sense of humor. Nobody can tell a joke like you. Or, you're the only one in the whole world. What luck that you happen to be my daughter. Or just simply, I love you.